My name is Kyle Patterson, and I have always loved history, learning about history and the world around us, and kind of being able to think critically about the past and apply that to the future. When I became a teacher, though, I had to think about my experiences as a student. I enjoyed school. I was a student that usually excelled in all of my classes, and I took it seriously. And I quickly realized as a teacher in middle school that I was not going to be teaching students that were all like me, right? Some of my students enjoyed school, but a lot of them maybe didn't. And so I had to figure out a way for them to love social studies or appreciate it, maybe not as much as I did, but at least on that level that I wanted them to achieve, more than they came to me with. And so I had to think about, what is social studies? Well, at its root, it's stories about the past and people and communities that we live in. And so I really took that role of storyteller to heart. And in my lessons throughout the years, throughout the grades that I've taught, sixth grade, seventh, and eighth, I kind of made it a point to focus in on the stories that would really let the kids dig deep into the past and find connections to it, to their own lives, to make it valuable to them. And so, my goal every year is for my students to become educated members of society, with the ability to think critically and analyze text from the past or modern day sources in order to understand their context and their meaning. I want them by the end of the school year to become capable American citizens, and one day citizens that participate in the American body politic and in this republic that we live in. In this lesson you're about to see, we're going to be answering the big idea of, how did the Middle Passage of the transatlantic slave trade affect the lives of enslaved Africans? So you'll be able to see how my students in sixth grade social studies tackle this question by using the information that they had already learned from a previous lesson through text and sources about the Middle Passage, and applying it to these document-based sources. Their objective for this lesson was that they will analyze primary sources to explain the forced enslavement and relocation of Africans to the Americas, known as the Middle Passage. Now, I do have students with 504s and IEPs that are being accommodated in various groups in this lesson. But what you'll notice is we are a virtual school at University View Academy. We are able to have students come on the mic and kind of lead that discussion. Higher level students that have more of an in-depth grasp of the Middle Passage, that feel more comfortable speaking about it, will get on the mic and talk through the different scenarios and questions that the students have to answer. And so our lower level students that might need that extra support are able to use that leadership example and follow it throughout the lesson. Guys, so let's go ahead and move to today's assignment if you're not already there. And in the chat pod with me, just share really quickly, what's our routine? Where do we need to go? I'm on my assignment today. What page do I need to go to? Help me out. I don't know where to go. Page 2. Yes, right? We've already done page 1 together. Y'all know this, right? We've looked at our standard, our objective. We've talked about what we're going to do today. You have a little warm-up video that hopefully some of you did before class. I can see your comments on there already. If you didn't, make sure you do that after class. All right? That is on your time. But when we get to page 2, we're on our concept development. Everybody should be here. Are there any questions so far before we jump in? You know where we're at. Are there any questions about it before we hop in? Okay. I'd love to see it. We're on a roll today, guys. So our very first success criteria, somebody read it earlier. You did a great job with that. Somebody read it for me really quickly again so we can tie it together with what we're going to do with our concept development here. I see some hands up. I'm just going to go ahead and go to Clayton. Clayton, can you read our success criteria right here for me, buddy?
I can analyze the transatlantic slave trade map to determine where enslaved people were taken from in Africa and where they were brought to the Middle Passage.
Good. And look, Clayton, look at that highlighted part underneath that. What do we have to do with this map?
Read the map source, then answer the quick test questions that follows.
Very good. Yes. Perfect. So, we have the map in front of us. Here it is, right? We know that we are analyzing it. We're looking at it to see where enslaved people were taken from and then where they were brought to along that middle passage, right? It's very simple today. If you scroll down and just kind of glance, we've got 2 quick check questions. Now guys, if I'm looking at a source, I'm going to open this up again really quickly here. If I'm looking at a source with questions, say it's a map, say it's a timeline. What did I tell y'all last week, and I told y'all over time? What's the first thing that I really want to read here in order to save some time? Is this test-taking skill? Is it something that you're going to use all year? Definitely on the LEAP test? Instead of just looking at the map itself, yeah, what are your questions going to be? What's the relevant information that you have to answer before you analyze that map? That way you know what you're actually looking for, right? So to analyze the map, before we do it, I need somebody to read our 2 quick check questions. What do we actually have to answer together?
Between 1650 and 1860, about 10 to 15 million enslaved Africans were transported across the Atlantic. Which main idea does this fact best support?
So what gives me the answer that, gives me the idea that it is C, because the first question is, the Middle Passage was the shortest trade route across the ocean. We know that's not true, because when you can look at the map, you can see that. And the second one is Africa willingly traded away its own population for good. We can tell that's not correct, because I don't think Africa would willingly trade away with their population for just goods. And the last question is, enslaved Africans were treated fairly when they arrived in the Americas. We know that's not true, because we are reading about how they were being slaves and how it was slavery in this time. So we knew that they were bringing the Africans in to slave and to work and to farm crops and pick cotton and things. So we knew that that's not why they didn't get treated fairly when they were brought to the Americas. So the Atlantic slave trade was one of the largest forced migrations in history. We know that's correct because it was a forced migration, and they didn't want to do this. They didn't agree to this, but they got shipped. They had no choice.
So our choice, and everybody kind of thought about for question number 2, would be answer choice C. So let's check our answer, because that's the beauty of quick check, right? Let's see if we're right. Absolutely, yes. Very great explanation, Ashton. I appreciated how you have been breaking down our process of elimination, right, between all those answer choices, and figuring out that, yes, the massive number of people taken shows the scale of the slave trade, making it one of the largest forced migrations ever. Right? Now that we know a little bit about what the Middle Passage looked like, we have mastered that success criteria number 1, where we looked and saw where the majority of enslaved people went and why. Now we're going to move on to our submission for today. We're looking at, and I'll just kind of give you a brief overview here before we jump into this and do this on your own. So if you're looking at your page 3 assignment in CAMI today, right? Scroll down a little bit. You'll notice how many sources are on this assignment. Okay, good. There's 5 sources, right? So we already have our reader that's going to be reading our questions and our text.
Hola, the Equano was an enslaved African who purchased his freedom in 1766. As he described the horrific conditions of the Middle Passage, to my grief, 2 of the white men offered me eatables, and on my refusing to eat, one of them held me fast by the hands and laid me across the windlass and tied my feet, while the other flogged me severely.
Okay, thank you, Jackson. So, all my historians, help me out. Jeffrey, read through some of the comments and what Gabby is putting on her screen. Put it all together here, Jeffrey. What is the condition? How does he describe, in his perspective, the conditions on this Middle Passage?
Alauda Equiano describes that if he refused to eat, they would hold him by the hands and lay him across the windlass, I assume is how that's pronounced.
Yep.
And tied his feet while others flogged him several times. The crew would watch closely, and the other slaves on board would be whipped for hours for not eating.
Okay. So do we agree, disagree in the chat? Do we need to add to this response?
think Sage also had the same thing as me in the chat because
Okay. I see a lot of no, it's great.
it was great.
A lot of no, that it's good where it's at. Okay. Let's see, we have our breakout room coming back on in. Glad to see y'all made it back.
Hello, we just got finished in time.
We did. We just rolled through our 5th document.
And we did
a great job. We did. Thank you.
Okay, so for source 4, it was talking about like what they fed the slaves on the ship, and we came up with that they fed them horse beans boiled up into like a plum. That was the first one, and then the second one was that they had to eat with like wooden spoons or their hands, so they didn't get like any like spoons, forks, whatever. And then also they got like scolded from the like food, and they made it like hot. And then the last one, like 4, it's they also ate yams and rice.
Very good, Addison. Sage and Jeffrey, right? What Addison just said is now in the chat. So now I need somebody from my group to really quickly tell us about source 5.
In 5, we learned about, like, it was a primary source, and it was like how he refused to eat, and what we put was he described that if he refused to eat, they would be held by their hands and laid across the windlass and tied feet, while others flagged him several times. The crew will watch closely and will be whipped for hours for not eating.
Okay. What did we say? What kind of source was source 5?
Primary source?
It is, right? And why do we know that's a primary source account? How do we know?
Because the first-hand account of the events that happened.
He was there, right? He's experienced it. And his primary source, we said, does it confirm the other sources we read about earlier, or does it not? Yes, Eli said that in the chat. Yes, it confirms the other sources that we read above. In this lesson, students were really able to answer that big idea question. How did the Middle Passage of the transatlantic slave trade affect the lives of enslaved Africans? I really felt like at the end of this lesson, students were able to definitely empathize with those enslaved Africans that were forced onto the Middle Passage and understand that forced relocation from one continent to another. And they were able to do that by analyzing the primary sources that were provided to them, that were chunked for them. One of the things about this assignment that was successful was that it was scaffolded into different parts. It started kind of low and it went a little bit higher, asking them to analyze a little bit deeper as it went. And so they were able to see that primary account and also see the human side of this story. And so I feel like most students were able to master that objective of analyzing the primary sources to explain the forced relocation of Africans known as the Middle Passage. Now, if I taught this lesson again, I would definitely look at leaving that last source open for them to answer. In my breakout room, students were able to make it entirely or make it through the entire document. And so what I would do in the future is leave that last source and document-based question open so that students are forced to show that they master the material on their own as well. A lot of this lesson you'll see, or you saw, was students that led the discussion, higher level students leading the discussion, high and medium, and some low students that were in the chat providing answers as historians. And those lower level students may have been left off because they didn't speak on the mic or they didn't give an answer in the chat. And so for me to be able to prove that every student mastered that objective, I would definitely leave open one of those questions at the end in order to do that. Now, moving forward, this unit ties in with our Unit 4, The Road to the American Revolution, in that it also follows and charts slavery as it progressed and changed in the 13 colonies. So we started in Unit 2 with this lesson on the Middle Passage, and then we worked our way through Unit 3 in colonial Louisiana, and now it's taking us into the 13 colonies during the American Revolution. And so students will be able to chart and see that progression of slavery and enslaved people's contributions during that time.